Secretary Linda McMahon delivered a stark indictment of America's education system after citing a jaw-dropping statistic out of Baltimore. 40% of the city's public high schools have zero students testing proficient in math. Her conclusion was blunt and unapologetic. This is not a student failure, it is a system failure. McMahon made the remarks as part of her Returning Education to the States tour, launched after President Donald Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. When Trump signed the order, he specifically cited Baltimore City Public Schools as evidence that the federal education model has failed. In Baltimore, Trump said, 40% of the high schools have zero students who can do basic mathematics. That statistic wasn't rhetorical. It came from a 2023 investigation by Fox 45 News, which analyzed Maryland state testing data and found that 13 of Baltimore's 33 high schools had zero students score proficient on the state math exam. McMahon said hearing that number was stunning, not just as a policymaker but as an American. How can we continue to fail our kids, she asked, pointing out that such outcomes would be unacceptable in any other sector of society. Since Trump's executive order, McMahon says the Department of Education has already been dramatically downsized, staffing cut roughly in half, from about 4,200 employees to around 2,100, with several functions moved to other federal agencies. The cuts, she argues, reflect a hard truth: massive federal involvement has not produced results. Since the Department of Education was established, we've spent about $3 trillion on our public school system, McMahon said. And we've seen our scores continually decline. So we're clearly doing something wrong. The proposal has sparked fierce opposition from teachers' unions. National Education Association President Becky Pringle warned that dismantling the department would harm vulnerable students, increase class sizes, and reduce special education services. The NEA argues that abolishing the DOE would be catastrophic for civil rights and low-income communities. McMahon rejected that framing outright. How can they stand in the face of the stat? We just talked about 40% of schools in Baltimore, she said. It is catastrophic now because teachers and administrators are not being held accountable. Rather than federal micromanagement, McMahon says real improvement must start locally. Parents, she argues, must demand accountability from teachers, administrators, and school boards. Her plan moving forward includes compiling a national best practices toolkit, highlighting what has worked in successful school systems across the country, and sharing that information with states and districts. As for the future of the Department of Education itself, McMahon confirmed that fully abolishing it would require congressional approval, and she says she is already working with House and Senate lawmakers to make that happen before President Trump's term ends. For McMahon, Baltimore is not an outlier, it's a warning. And until outcomes change, she insists the debate can't be avoided. After trillions spent and decades passed, the system isn't just underperforming, it's failing the very students it was meant to serve.